Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining today. In this webinar, our product expert, Susan, is going to take you through 3 recent releases for Leaptree Optimize. So it should take about 30 minutes. So let's jump straight in. Over to you, Susan.
Thank you for attending our webinar today. I'm going to run through 3 key features that we have implemented over the last 12 months, which we believe will really enhance our product offering. The first of these changes is what we call even distribution. This is the ability to audit a set number of records per agent with each scorecard creation schedule. In the below example, I have a scorecard creation schedule which runs monthly. It looks at all cases that have been closed in the last 30 days where it was created via an email. We may have a varying number of cases across a varying number of reps that have met this criteria. So the aim of this even distribution feature is to allow us to pick up to a certain number of cases that have been handled by each rep within the data that is returned under those additional conditions. So it's a good way of capping the number of scorecards that we carry out per rep and also ensuring that we're carrying out the same number of audits for each rep across that 30-day period. The second feature that we're going to be reviewing is called skill-based approval process. This is the ability to seamlessly integrate the scorecard process with your daily work streams, enabling QA audits to be carried out real time instead of after the transaction or interaction with the customer has completed. As we know, it's always best to ensure that our calls are reserved first call resolution so that we can, the best way to achieve this is to monitor the quality of the interactions that our customers are having with our agents throughout the process so that we can get on top of any issues as and when they occur, rather than having to go back and kind of fix them after the fact. The third new feature that we're going to do is what we call calibration. And it's basically the ability to gauge how all of our QA team members are scoring agents and ensuring that they are all aligned in the scoring that we are carrying out. In the example below, we were auditing any complaint cases that came in from January through to March. We have chosen to audit 3 scorecards for each of our QA evaluators. And what this calibration process will do is it will create a scorecard for each of those QA evaluators, and that scorecard will be based upon the same case. We will then, after the QA evaluators have audited those cases, this dashboard will present us with the results of the scorecards from each of the evaluators. Because they are based upon the same case or indeed the same record, it doesn't necessarily need to be a case. You would expect that our QA evaluators would come in sort of aligned in the scoring that they're achieving or that they're reaching for this particular audit. Sometimes that isn't always the case, so this gives us a good mechanism to kind of check. If you look at the results by member pane here, you'll see that did they follow the script provided. That's kind of the benchmark here is 100% because we do have a script that our agents need to follow, and we would expect that they would follow that 100% of the time. You can see here that Susan and Matthew have scored this particular transaction at 100%. However, Courtney has decided that actually they didn't follow the script. There doesn't seem to be in this question much room for maneuver or much of room to apply your own judgment. Either they followed the script or they didn't. So you would wonder why perhaps Susan and Matthew have given 100%, whereas Courtney has given 0. So it's a way of kind of drilling down into the individual questions to see why perhaps some of our QA evaluators are coming out with different marks to others. Okay, so we'll move on and have a look at the actual functionality of these features, and I hope that you'll find them of use. So now if we come back to our Salesforce org here, I have set up a report which is called Even Distribution Example. This report is looking at a number of criteria. The criteria that it's looking at is the number of cases that have been closed in the last greater than in the last 30 days, where the case origin equals email and where closed equals true. So this criteria directly matches the criteria that we looked at on our example. And you'll see that across all of that criteria, we have roughly 89 cases that close within the last 30 days. And on average, it's around 30 cases for each one of our 3 case owners. So we'll come here to the scorecard creation schedule. I'm calling this one the even distribution example. We're using the case object, and the scorecard type that I'm going to use here is called support inquiry. I'm going to take only closed cases. I'm going to take cases with or without a scorecard, but I'm going to evenly distribute my scorecard across all of the owners that appeared within that criteria. So that will be Aaron, Courtney, and Libby. And I'm going to assign a maximum of 3 scorecards for each of them. So the system will randomly pick out of these 89 records which 3 need to be scored for Aaron, Courtney, and Libby. And you can see here that the criteria we've got set up here matches. I'm going to assign it to myself as the QA evaluator. I'm going to schedule this to run in the 1st of every month, which means that you don't have to recreate or rebuild it. This will just continue to run until it reaches an end date here. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to run it once and save and create the scorecards. Okay, so if I go to my scorecards tab here and I have a look at all of my scorecards, I can see now that I have 3 cases for Libby, 3 scorecards for Libby, 3 for Aaron, 3 for Courtney. Okay, and those have all run at the same time. This shows here that it is in fact that job that I've just run there now at 9:36 has created each of those 3 scorecards across the board. So it's a good way of limiting the number of scorecards that you're creating per rep, and also ensuring that you are actually auditing the same number of scorecards for each of your agents. Okay, the next feature that we're going to talk about is what we call the skill-based approval process. This allows us to embed the Leaptree scorecards within our daily work streams and allows us to apply real-time auditing to transactions before they reach certain stages. The idea behind that is to ensure that we catch any potential bad experiences up front, and we don't have to wait for our monthly or bi-weekly audits to happen and find out after the fact that there's been a potential issue. So in this scenario, we've got a rep called Aaron. He's a customer services rep, but he has only been with the company for 3 or 4 weeks, so we do know that he's fairly green. As part of our approval process, we have identified a range of accounts who we would deem to be particularly sensitive, and we want to make sure that we are auditing all of the cases that Aaron completes for these particular accounts before they get closed, and that will enable us to pick up any potential bad experiences on these sensitive accounts before the transaction is fully completed. So we've got an account here called Yadel. We know that they're a sensitive account because they have recently returned a CSAT rating of 2. That's not particularly good. So we have confirmed that agents with a level of 1, and in this particular case that's going to be Aaron, that we have to audit all of the cases that are going to be closed under this particular account where Aaron has been the owner on those cases. So what we'll see from Aaron's point of view, if he tries to close out a case, now it doesn't necessarily need to be on closure, it could be potentially on any move to any stage. We've actually combined the Leaptree product with some standard Salesforce functionality here, like validation rules, and we've been able to create validation rule here that if Aaron saves the record and tries to close it, that it will come up with a warning telling him that he has to submit this for approval. Okay, so Aaron will then come over to the right-hand side here where he sees the submit record for approval tile. He'll hit this button, and that record has now been submitted to the quality analyst for evaluation. So if we log in as the quality analyst now, I'm in the My Pending Scorecards queue. If you had omni-channel configured, it would be able to pop up so that real time your quality analyst will know that this work item is pending and needs to be done in order for Aaron to continue moving on with his work. That is our recommended approach, that you would configure omni-channel so that that scorecard then automatically pops up for the QA evaluator. So I've gone to the case in question here. I can see that it's against Yadel. I can have a look at the case. I can look through any emails, call logs, or text posts that might have been sent to the client just to make sure that I'm happy. I can look through all of the related documentation. And then what I can do is I can go across to the complete scorecards here over at the right. I'll click on the play button and I'll start the evaluation. So is the resolution that the agent is proposing correct? Yes, it is. Has the agent communicated appropriately through the interactions with the customer? Yes, he has. Complete the scorecard. And then finally, the last question it'll ask me, do I want to approve this scorecard for the related case? I'm going to say yes. Okay, so now if we come back to Aaron, we'll have a look at the record now, and we can see that the case closure is now statused as approved. So that means now whenever he goes through here to status this as closed and hit save, okay, it's closed it for him, no problem. And we'll just have a very quick look at how we have implemented that solution in at the back. So we have what we call, within our optimized settings, we have this skills management piece. And this piece is actually a user interface that surfaces the standard Salesforce skills module. So I have created a number of skills here. I've created customer service skill, and I've assigned that customer service skill to Aaron at a level of 1. And that just means that he's a beginner. Now, as of when I decide to increase Aaron's skill level here, it will change the percentage of scorecards that have to be completed against each of the cases for those nominated accounts that we have looked at. So if we go through the skill-based approval process and have a look at what we've created here, and what we're saying is the process runs off the case object and it uses scorecard type case closure approval. And that just means that has questions that are specifically related to the closing of the case. We've chosen here that we're going to take either VIP accounts or accounts where the CSAT rating is less than or equal to 3. And because this is using the skill, the customer services skill, and because Aaron is at a level 1, then we want to score 100% of his cases to make sure that they have to be audited by a person before they get approved or for closure. Once he reaches level 2, then we'll only want to do 75% of those transactions, and actually the other 25 will auto approve, and so on. So as he improves in his ability, you'll see that the percentage of items to be reviewed drops. We're going to assign it to a specific user. In that case, it's me. And we're going to ask the specific question at the end of the scorecard. Do you approve this scorecard? Yes or no? In other scenarios, you may just have it so that if it reaches 100%, then it's a yes, and it will allow him then to complete. And if you have a look here now, we have the post-approval steps. These items here are the parts that are essentially controlling the validation rules. So if it gets approved, then we'll update the closure approval status to approved. If it is rejected, then we'll update it to rejected. And the validation rule kicks in if it is either blank or it's rejected, then it will not let Aaron, in this particular example that we saw, close out the case. So essentially we're forcing it so that the case has to be approved before it can be closed. So that's a nice way of working with Leaptree and the Salesforce admin team to just embed quality as part of your daily processes and not just make it a monthly exercise. And the next feature that we're going to look at today is the calibration workspace. Calibration is essentially a process that allows you to audit your evaluators and to make sure that they are scoring on a similar and fair basis The process is normally run on a monthly or at regular intervals, and it would involve you having each of the evaluators audit the same transaction and then comparing the results that each of the evaluators scores. That way you can identify if perhaps there's any favoritism or if there's any misunderstanding on the interpretation of any questions. You would like to think that your evaluators would all kind of come out with the same range of scores, and this process just allows you to highlight where that isn't actually happening. So as part of this, we've created an overall workspace, and we're going to audit some of the transactions that happen between January and March. There's a few calibration processes have already happened here, and essentially this just represents an individual occurrence. So you might run this once a month or once a week between January and March. And each one of these processes might represent a weekly set of cases or a weekly set of scorecards that are getting audited. So if we click into the first one here, what we can see here is that we've done 3 scorecards for each of our 3 members, the members being Susan Stevenson, Matthew Cole, and Courtney Hutchinson. And the cases that each one of these evaluators have evaluated are exactly the same. Okay, so if we have a look here, we can see that out of all of there's still a few calibration scorecards to be finished off. Our team members don't specifically know which scorecards are calibration scorecards versus which ones are standard scorecards. That is something that you can expose, but at the moment it's not something that we advise them. The idea would be that they're not actually aware that the scorecard that they're completing is in fact a calibration one, because that might defeat the purpose of this particular audit. But you can see here we have a number of metrics that we can measure for each question. The benchmark here is sort of the average that we would expect, or that we would expect our reps to be coming out with score-wise, and then across all of the calibration records, this is what the average score has been. This would then flag a standard deviation, which lets you know that actually there could be a bit of an issue here because there is a deviation in this particular question. And just to highlight that you might want to have a look in further detail. You can then look at it on a per evaluator basis as well, and we can see clearly here on the first question, Courtney has allocated a score of 0 to this particular case, whereas Matthew and Susan have given them both 100%, which is kind of odd. You might wonder why Courtney has given a 0, and then you might drill down further into more of the detail. Again, we can see here by section the average score that each of our reps are giving, and then by member and by question again. So there's just a few bits of information on here. You can also change the benchmarks if you decide that actually the scoring that your agents are getting, maybe perhaps the performance around this question has improved significantly over the last month or so. And actually the benchmark should be more like a 4 out of 5. So you can just go ahead and update them. And each of our calibrations works off a scorecard creation schedule. So this is an automated process that will pick a batch of cases that will be included within each particular calibration process here. So if we have a look at this scorecard creation schedule, we can see that it is looking for cases within a certain criteria. So it could be open or closed, cases with or without a scorecard. And we wanted to do 3 cases. And we want to take only complaint cases in this particular scenario. Perhaps they're the only ones that you're actually interested in ensuring that the reps are performing, or the evaluators are performing on the same sort of level if there's a complaint involved. And then what we're saying here is that we're going to actually evaluate all of our reps' evaluations here. Okay, So once we come into the calibration workspace, we can create several new ones. For instance, if you wanted to start off with a new workspace, which used a completely different creation schedule, you might have one for inbound phone calls, or you might have one for outbound sales, for example. But each workspace works off a different creation schedule. So that means that the data that you're filtering in at the back is going to be different for each type of calibration workspace. So in this particular example, we've linked this workplace to the complaints QA calibration that we've just seen. And we can just decide that we want to run, for example, let's pick a few other cases and create a new calibration process. And that's going to then create a new instance of this calibration down here. So what I'm doing now is I'm picking another 3 cases per rep, and it's created an entry for me here. So these are the cases that I'm going to audit today, and I'll be auditing the progress or the results that our evaluators are giving us. So at the moment, you can see we've done 3 scorecards per member. We had 5 members in our schedule, therefore there are 15 calibration scorecards that are waiting. At this point in time, no one's completed any of those scorecards, so they haven't gone in to actually start answering the questions yet, which means there's 3 scorecards pending for each one of our evaluators. As the evaluators start to fill out these scorecards, you will start to see these numbers populate within this dashboard. At the moment, obviously it is new and it's only just been created, so we need to give them a bit of a chance to go in and start creating and answering scores. Again, we can update the benchmarks here. By default, they come in as blank, so we can decide at this point in time what we would be expecting our agents to come out at and what kind of is our pass mark for each of those questions. And that just will start to filter into all of your tiles here. So that's the calibration process as we've introduced just over the last year with Leaptree. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to let us know, but I hope that that'll be of use for you, and it's certainly something that many of our clients have started actively using over the last 12 months.
Thanks very much for that, Susan, and thank you all for attending our webinar. If you have any questions about anything, or you'd like to dig a little bit deeper into the detail about any of the features that we've talked about today, please do get in touch and let us know. Additionally, if you would like to see something in Optimize that we don't currently have, please do let us know too, because it is one of the ways we decide what to build next. So don't forget that Optimize is only one of 4 Salesforce native apps that we offer. So do check those out as well. Thank you.